I'm Katrina, and this is Sew and Tear. Today we are going to be making turkey bone broth. Make that and turkey gravy makings. Not the gravy, we're going to make that later. And we're going to can it all up, and it's going to be great. If you've done your holiday turkey or any bones, you can follow this and we'll have a good time making some turkey bone broth. So today we're making turkey broth. We're making a bone broth. I deboned the turkey yesterday, and the turkey and the skin and kind of the leftovers are all on this tray. I did spray it with oil first, lightly. And we're going to cook this in the oven at 400 degrees for about 30 minutes. Alright, let's see how they're doing. Woo! Foggy. Alright, we're a little fogged up, but this is what you guys are fogging up. This is what your bones should look like after they have been baked. So this releases extra flavor, yumminess. So we're gonna now put it into the New Wave, which is like an Instant Pot but bigger, and cover it with water. I have some water in it already, but you want it just until covered, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the New Wave pot, and this is what I cooked the turkey in yesterday. I didn't clean it because I knew I was going to do this today. So another part of what I'm going to do, so I'm going to set some water to boil in the tea kettle. Once this is off of the, once I've cleared everything off of the cookie sheet, then I will put boiling water over it to get all the yummy goodness that's stuck onto it, which is also known as deglazing. So last time I made turkey stock, I forgot this process. I forgot to cook the bones, and it turned out much lighter in flavor and in color. So I'm going to compare this with that batch once it's done. The bone broth. I don't know why I forgot it. I always do it. So you can see there's all kinds of stuff left on the sheet. Once that water's boiling, that should take care of that. And I should have boiled it before I took this out, but that's okay. So we do want the water completely covering this. It's almost there. What I will often do when I make bone broth is just save the bones and skin in the freezer, but I want to make specific turkey bone broth, and we don't have turkey that often, so this is just going to be a little bit. And I will run this through twice to get as much goodness as I can out. The if you do it a third time, it's not really worth it. You don't get much out of that. But I am going to put a splash of apple cider vinegar in here while we're waiting for the water to boil. And this is what a splash looks like. All that does is it adds acidity to it, and that will help pull out the minerals from the bones into the broth. So what you want to do is take your boiling water and pour it onto the pan. This is called deglazing. take a spatula. I'm using a plastic one because this does have a non-stick coating on it. Ooh, it's better to do this on a flat surface, but I don't have it. Well, I don't think my cookie sheet is level, but that's how you do it, and we can do it again, but we're first going to put it into the pot. So you can see how much we got off, and we can do that again and get more. Okay, so we got much more the second time around. So there it is in the pot, and we want to go down to here and press time and make it go all the way up. It's hard to hold the camera at the same time. Okay, go all the way up as high as we can. It's going to go to 2 hours. So again, I'm going to add another hour partway through. And to do that, I just stop it and then start it over again without opening it. And we can close it up. Turn this to seal, and go ahead and start. It'll preheat and the steam will come out. It'll close itself up, and we'll see you in 3 hours. Our bone broth is done. We're going to strain this out, and I'm going to refill the water and do a second batch. So I have just a stock pot and a colander in it, and we'll pour it in. Pour it all the way.
Try not to make a mess.
Pour it all the way in. Okay, so now we pour the bones back in. You can see our broth is nice broth there. And we'll fill this just to cover with water again and put another little bit of apple cider vinegar in it and go for round 2. So we have a whole stock pot full that is both times through in the, or 2 times through in the New Wave. So this is all our turkey bone broth, and then we have this that I put in the refrigerator. That plus this of the, and you can see how gelled it is. That is what was at the bottom of the New Wave when we did when we actually cooked the turkey. We have 2 separate things. We're going to keep them separate, but we're going to pressure can them in the same batch. So we'll have to keep them straight. But this is the bones, and this has gone through pressure canning twice. So basically, it's not pressure canning. This has gone through the pressure cooker twice, both for 3 hours. So you can feed this to your animals. It looks like, you know, just a regular bone, but it squishes, and I mean, you can see how, if it'll focus, you can see how that just squishes. So I'm going to give this to the quail and to the chickens, and they love the stuff inside too. And they love it. They will love it. So that's what I'm going to do with that. And next we're going to get to canning. So now we're going to can the bone broth that we made. So I have this much bone broth. It's heated up. And then I also have that much of the drippings in the pressure cooker. So that I'm going to can up in smaller jars to make gravy with, and then this is the bone broth for like soup and stuff like that. So it is heated up. It is heated up, and what I'm going to do is pour it into these clean hot jars, and we'll can it. So what I found with things like stock and stuff, it's kind of worthless to use a ladle unless you have a humongous one. So what I've taken to is just pouring it, which honestly works just fine. Well, works just fine unless you try and look at the camera and see what you're doing. Alright, let's try that again. So I thought 5 was going to be enough. I was incorrect. We have more. Why why they only make gloves that are right-handed. Look at that. We're gonna have a perfect 7 quarts. Alright, we have a little bit extra. We can use that in our next meal. So next I have a piece of paper towel that has distilled white vinegar on it. And I'm just going to wipe the tops of the jars. When you're doing this, you're checking for cracks and chips, which I actually do before this process. But check again. But then also, what this does is it cuts the grease, the fat, any fat that has sloshed onto the rim is cleaned up with this. And this one I spilled a little bit more. So I have my lids heating. These are Harvest Guard lids. They're reusable. So we're going to use those with our bands, and I'll show you those in a minute. They're heating up in the water. I find that they work better if they are heated up. So these have 2 parts. I just put them in like that when I heat them up in the water, and that way I can just take them out really easy. So these are different in that you just put a finger down and do fingertip tight. That means that you don't crank on it or anything like that. That means as soon as it stops moving, you can go like that, it is on there. It's gonna really feel like it's way too loose for those people that are used to canning with the regular ball lids, the regular metal lids. It's gonna feel like it's way too loose and it's gonna come off, but it won't. As long as you have it threaded right, it won't be coming off. It won't do any of that. So then what happens is afterwards, when you take it out, 5 to 7 minutes after you take it out, you then crank down on it, which you don't do if you're using the metal lid. So I've pretty much gone to these reusable lids. These are Harvest Guard. Tatler's the same exact thing, just different brand. And and they work for me. They just need to be heated up beforehand, and they work for me just fine. So here we go. I'm gonna take off the lid. Make sure the steam goes away. This is a preheated. And use our jar lifter to put in the jars. This should be fitting all 7 jars in here. All right, so set this on, turn it, and we're gonna make sure this crack right here is even all the way around. So we get an even seal. Whoops, that's a little too much. You do this just like you do a car tire. Opposites first. And tighten just until you feel that it's there. Then we're going to go back and tighten them after we check that distance between the lid and the pot is still okay. Alright, now we wait for this to have a steady stream of steam. That's hard to say. For 10 minutes. Once that has exhausted for 10 minutes, then that's when you put on the weight and start your time. So we'll come back when that is happening. Alright, I'm hoping this is showing up on camera. But this is the steady stream of steam right here. You can kind of see it against the cabinet. So we're going to start the timer for 10 minutes. And once 10 minutes has hit, we are going to put on our weight. So this steady stream right here, this has been going for 10 minutes, or will be when the timer goes off, because I am at 0 to 1,000 feet, and because I also have a weight gauge pressure, a weight pressure canner, I'm going to use the 10 pounds of pressure and put this on here. So, come on, focus. Anyway, that says 10 pounds of pressure. I'm going to put it right on there. And then I am setting, once this comes up to pressure, it will start wiggling. And once that starts, I will start my time. And the time will be 25 minutes because I have quarts. I am at 0 to 1,000 feet. And I have a weight gauge pressure canner. So we'll wait for that to start jiggling. Alright, there is our first little jiggle. We're going to turn down the heat just a little bit. And do the timer to 25 minutes. And again, the 25 minutes is because of my elevation, my type of pressure cooker, and also the size of my jars. So if you want to check for your specific time, go ahead and go on to the National Center for Home Food Preservation website, which I'll link in the description, and it will give you all the information you need to figure out how much time you need to can for. I forgot to mention that once this is in the pressure mode and you have the pressure up to 10 pounds of pressure or whatever your pressure is for your area, you need to stay here. You need to be able to see it and hear it to make sure that the pressure is maintained. If it goes below 10 pounds of pressure, then you need to start all over again. So you want to stay in the room. If it goes way above, that's going to be an issue. It shouldn't, because if you have this kind, if you have a jiggler of this type, then it should release. What it's doing is it's releasing the pressure. But if it's doing that like the whole entire time, it might not be able to release enough pressure, and that's why you're turning down the temperature so that it jiggles at the appropriate time. Check your manual for your pressure cooker. Sorry, not cooker. Don't do this in a pressure cooker. Check your manual in your pressure canner, and it will tell you how to judge that. If you don't have a jiggler, it's going to be a different process, and I've only used this one, so I would not be a good reference for like the Presto. But for the All-American, this is how this one works. Alright, our timer has come off. It's 25 minutes. We're going to do nothing up here. We're going to turn off the heat. We're going to wait until this dial reaches 0. Now this dial might be incorrect because it needs to be calibrated each year, which is why I prefer to use the pressure gauge pressure canners. That way it doesn't have to be calibrated ever. But it's used as a measure of, is the pressure safe for me to take off this weight? So we are going to wait for this to come down. And at this point, I am going to turn back on the heat for this second batch, and that is the turkey stock from the drippings from this turkey. So I'm going to turn that back on, and turn that back on while we wait for this to come down. It's going to take a while. Our pressure gauge has reached 0. So what we're going to do is, with a hot pad, do not burn yourself, we're going to take off the regulator. And we're going to wait for 2 minutes for that to let the steam escape. So it's been 2 minutes. We're now going to remove this. The same that we did to attach it, we do opposite. I just realized I need a place to put this. Alright, so this is going to come off. And slowly let the steam out. You can set it here for a little bit. Always take this off so that the steam goes away from you. I just leave it here for a little bit. Makes the pressure change or temperature and pressure change at a slower pace inside the jars when you do this. Some people leave it like this for a long time, but I found that's not necessary. Again, open away from you. And I am going to put this, if you're putting it on the counter, you need to put it on a towel on a counter, because it will it'll crack something. That's the counter or the jar. These are very, very, very hot. So, if you have not done so already, invest in a jar lifter. And you'll see they're still boiling. Always pick it up directly up. There's going to be water on the top, but that's okay. Now I am short of counter space, so I am actually putting this on my floor on a towel. And that's been kind of where I've been putting things. You can see it's still bubbling away in there, and it'll bubble for a while. Now I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. You can skip this step if you're using the metal lids. Alright, now we're going to repeat the process. I'm using these pint jars that are warm, and the turkey drippings. You do it the same way you do turkey stock. Or chicken stock, same way, except for it's pint size, so it's going to be 20 minutes instead of 25 for my altitude and for my pressure canner. I'm going to notice this is a much richer looking stock. I'm going to use this to make gravy. I've done this and it works out really, really well. That way you can have your gravy done before your turkey's done. Or you can have it if you're just making mashed potatoes or whatever you're making. It smells good. So this partial one we'll use first. But that was the timer to tell us to go close the jars. I'm just going to use a cloth. So again, pick it up by the actual jar, hold it, and then twist the top, this ring. And then when you lift it up again with your hands, lift up the jar and put it down. And repeat. And you can see some of these go quite a bit, and some of them won't. But this is specific to the Harvest Guard or the Tatler lids. You don't have to do this, and you shouldn't do this, if it is the ball lids or other metal lids. So these will sit here for 12 to 24 hours. And then once that is done, then we'll take the bands off to store it. I'm going to do this one again. Okay. Good. You can take your vinegar cloth, go around. So now you understand that when you're pressure canning, 20 minutes is not actually 20 minutes. Because you have to wait for the pressure to go up, wait for the pressure to go down, and I just dipped that in there. That's not ideal. So, next step, is to get these lids. Come on, you want to center everything. I find it easier if you put the gasket on the lid like that in water, and you warm it. It just works better, I think. Most some of these are, that can be taken off with alcohol. It doesn't really come off immediately with the Sharpie. We're just washing it, getting off the alcohol during that. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I just try on the other side. Obviously that's not hot sauce for apple juice, right? Okay, I'm gonna try on the other part. Alright, now for the ends. I'm gonna use the ends until they like basically get marked. Or get squished. I'm actually gonna retire this band. It's a little funny. It's also a little rusted. No more for retiring. Oh, that comes sideways. I can see this works later. Okay, just let it on sideways. Weird. So the timer's gone off and our makings for gravy is good. So now whenever we want to make gravy, we just take one of these out and heat it up and then add the flour and seasoning as you would if it was fresh. So it's been a day and these turkey stock and the turkey stock that I'm going to use for gravy, they have been sitting here for well over 12 hours. It's been probably about 24 hours. So now is the time that we take off the rings. And what we hope to see when these are off is that we can pick up the jar from the lid and it does not come off. That means they're sealed. It means they're safe to put on the shelf. You can wipe down the jars. They might have a little residue on them from the canning process. That's a good practice. But something you do not want to do is leave the ring on, because you can see there's still moisture there and that will actually rust these. Reasons not to leave the ring on: one, this is going to rust. Two, if this does not seal, it can present a false seal, and so your food can be unsafe and you won't know it. So you want to store it without the ring. Now, in the next day or two, you want to check these again and make sure they are actually sealed. If you find one that isn't sealed during this process, then you can put that in the refrigerator within 24 hours of the canning process, or once you open it up, open up the rings, and you can use that. You can reprocess it if you want. If you do that, then you have the potential for making like over-processing it, overcooking it. So let me show you up close. So this is the lid, the gasket, and the jar. And I am not pushing, I'm not holding the jar at all. I'm just holding the lid. And that is a lot of weight it can hold from the lid. That means it's sealed. That's what you want. Regardless of if it's a reusable or if it's a metal lid. Now, like I said, I recommend washing off your jars before you store them. Especially if you've had any siphoning, then your jars are going to be a little, a little dirty. Now, this jar we're going to use, within a few days probably. I could have just thrown it in the fridge and not processed it, but now I have a little bit of option. But I will use that first, and you do want to use that somewhat quickly. So here's one that didn't seal. And it may have not sealed because I didn't crank it down hard enough at the end. It may not have sealed because, it is a bigger headspace. Maybe there was something in between the gasket and the mouth. So we're going to use this. We could reprocess it if we wanted. We could we could do that, but I'm not going to. So we'll put this in the refrigerator and it will last in the refrigerator. So you either need to refrigerate it or use it pretty quick. So that one we will save. Looks like we're making gravy, which is good because we have leftover mashed potatoes. Another reason it could be is these rings can get squished sometimes, and I just noticed that when I put it on, that the ring might be the reason. If it doesn't go on smoothly, choose a different ring. Alright, so there we have it. There are our turkey stock and turkey stock that I'm going to use for gravy. I'm going to wash those off and store them. I hope you make some bone broth and some stock yourself. Have a good one.